4:46 Pacific, 5:46 in the Mountain Time Zone. You're listening to Radio West here on CBC Radio 1. Thanks so much for spending part of your afternoon with us today. Well, the art world is reeling as BC's opioid crisis claims another victim. Michael O'Toole was an acrylic artist based in Peachland whose work can be found in collections in Canada, the US, Europe, and Japan. Last month, he passed away after overdosing on opioids. Denny Segnitz owns the White Rock Gallery. We have her on the line right now. I'm so sorry for the loss of your friend, Denny.
Thank you, Sarah.
So tell us about Michael as an artist. What made his work so special?
He was just one of the truest artists I've ever worked with. He could talk about art and famous artists and all the travels he'd done, and he painted truly from the heart. Almost everyone liked his work. We've worked with him for almost 30 years, and he was a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Can you describe his work?
Very colorful, master of color. He started out in architectural design, and he had a very good sense of shape and composition, and very powerful. He painted a lot of mountain scenes, West Coast scenes. He had traveled to Haida Gwaii. And a very recognizable style. You can always tell a Michael O'Toole when you see it, and it'll be confident and crisp and lots of color, a little bit stylized, and beautiful.
Now, on your website, you say the loss of this incandescent talent and world's nicest person is heartbreaking. What was Michael like as a person?
He was just lovely. We're still reeling. He was the sweetest guy. He also taught workshops, and lots of his students told us how much they loved his courses. I never met anyone who didn't think he was a sweetheart, and he was often described as that. He was the absolute nicest guy, and we miss him terribly.
Were you aware that he was struggling with an opioid addiction?
We unfortunately weren't. We more recently knew something was a little off. Probably just the last few months. We look back now, and I think we see signs that we maybe missed. We used to joke that he was a little bit unreliable in his timing of coming with paintings. He would phone and say he was coming a certain day, and then he would phone and say, "I'm so sorry, I need a little more time on the paintings, and I'll come in a few days." And we'd always, of course, say fine. And we used to joke when he called the first time he was coming, because we'd say, well, that means that's call 1. He'll maybe be here by call 3. But he went to rehab about a month or 6 weeks ago, and we heard about he actually called me from rehab, and I told him how proud I was that he was there and so happy and that he was getting help. And so we were obviously aware at that time. And then he came to see us after rehab. He'd been out a few weeks, and he brought in a painting, and he literally brought in a painting, put it on the floor by our front desk, and went out to his car. And I said to one of my colleagues here, I looked at this painting, and I said, that is the best waterfall painting Michael has ever done. It was absolutely beautiful. And then he brought in 3 more paintings, equally as beautiful, equally as outstanding, and we had a magical afternoon. We sold 3 of the 4 paintings while he was here, because it was just so they were just such magnificent pieces. And we had one of our clients took photos with him, and they said later that they realized something was just a little bit off, but they didn't know what it was. So I guess he was still struggling, and he was very excited about painting. He was going to, one of our senior artists, Alan Wiley, was here at the time, and Michael said he was going to go take a course with Alan for the first time. And I have no question, he was excited about going back and continuing on painting, and it's just so tragic that he obviously thought he was okay, and he wasn't. So.
What do you know about how his addiction began?
He had cancer that was quite dangerous. He was told he was probably not going to make it, and he battled the odds and was fine. So but I believe he was on painkillers from some of the ramifications that happened from the cancer 20 years ago, and I think that's where the painkillers started. And I never noticed anything I've known him, as I said, all of that time and never noticed any issues until the last few months. So I don't know the details of what maybe started to go wrong, but I understand from his family that it's been going on for a while and that it's been very stressful for everyone. And he always had the very, very best of intentions, but he actually said to my husband in the gallery that one time we just saw him before this all happened. He said to my husband, I've never drank, I never took drugs, I never, did anything like that. I loved painting, and he said, I cannot believe that I'm in my 50s and I'm an addict. And he just looked so sad about it and incredulous. Like his look was like, I can't believe I'm in this situation. And we don't know what happened. He got out of rehab, and what I understand is I guess you're more sensitive to the drugs once you've been off of them, or we don't know if he got something elsewhere and just had that 1 grain too much that you can't have, but he overdosed, so we lost him.
I'm so sorry. What was when you found out, when you heard the news, can you tell me about the reaction that you had, your husband, your colleagues?
Well, I crumbled into tears. It was pretty shocking and sad. And I guess it was very surreal. It remains surreal. But the thing I remember was my husband. My staff said you need to go home, and so I started to pack up to just go home for the rest of the day. And my husband went on a walk outside, just waiting for me. And he happened to walk by a couple of young men, probably in their 30s, sitting on a bench, and he looked at them, and they looked at him, and they said, "How are you?" Because I guess he looked a little sad, and he just said, "I'm not very good. I just lost a good friend to the opioid crisis." And this young man looked at him and said, "I have lost 27 of my friends," and it was just mind-boggling. And he said, there were some really good people in there, and of course we keep hearing it in the news, but now we felt it up close and personal. And since this happened, I've had stories coming out of the woodwork of clients who have neighbors or friends that have had kids that, one had a child in grade 12 that got prescribed an opioid for a hurt knee in a soccer game and ended up addicted and actually had tried to quit on his own and was throwing up and having flu-like symptoms, and his parents realized it was going on too long, found out what had happened, got him in rehab, and he ended up in 3 different rehabs over the next 4 years. He's now good. He's happily at engineering school back east and doing okay, but he can't drink even a beer because apparently it'll affect his pathways, and he lost 4 years, and thank goodness he's still here, but we're just hearing all kinds of horrible stories, so it's become very real. It's not just the news anymore.
And I want to ask you about that. On the website, you say Michael's death shows that the crisis can strike anyone, anywhere. Why was it important for you to be public about the loss of your friend? Well, I talked to his brother was the one who called me, and we discussed it, the two of us, and we both felt like it was just so incredibly tragic, and it felt like to not say anything, of course, would leave a lot of question marks in people's head because he seemed like a vibrant young man and in the prime of his career. And we just thought, if any good can come of this, and we both felt very much that we would share with people how unbelievably dangerous it is and how easily it can happen to people you would least expect it to happen. I mean, this was a upstanding citizen, wonderful young man, successful artist, giving back to the world and teaching people, and it's just so sad and such a loss. And he was looking forward to painting more, and so I guess we thought if people would know how easily it can happen and how powerful it is. He did not want this to happen. I think he thought he could handle it. Danny, thank you so much for telling us about your friend, and I really appreciate this. I know this hasn't been easy, so for you to take the time to talk to us means a lot. Thank you very much. No problem. Thanks, Sarah. Bye now. Thanks. Bye-bye. That's Denny Segnich. She owns the White Rock Gallery. You can read more about Michael O'Toole and see his work if you head to the White Rock Gallery's website. It's 4 minutes to the top of the hour. You're listening to Radio West here on CBC Radio 1. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us. If you'd like to respond to anything that you ever hear on our program, you can always shoot us an email. We're at radiowest@cbc.ca.